recently retired from the Wildlife Resources Commission, and with him today is his wife Judy, and we'll be talking about Tom's career and accomplishments in the wildlife field. And we'll begin, Tom, if you'll just tell us a little bit about your background and how you got started in the field and so forth.
I'm a dyed-in-the-wool mountaineer. I didn't have webs between my toes when I was born. So I grew up in the mountains in a little town of Brevard, South Asheville. I went to high school there at Brevard. Hunted with my dad a lot. Spent most of the time in the woods. You know, we didn't have TV then, we had a radio. But I had rather be in the woods than even listening to the radio. So spent a lot of time squirrel hunting and, you know, just being in the woods all the time. And, so I learned to love the outdoors. I graduated from Brevard High School here in Brevard and went to school for a year and a half at Brevard College, which was a little junior college there in town. And went to work at Olin Matheson, which is a paper mill there, and worked there for about 6 years. And learned to hate that an awful lot. Didn't take long to learn to hate that. Go into work and you can't even see if it's raining or sun shining or, you know, whatever. And then, unfortunately, along came this one. And she had an education already. I met her when she was doing her student teaching on a blind date. And she had finished her education at that time, or she would that spring, so. She had some resources, and she bought me some books and sent me to school, and we went over to Knoxville, Tennessee, and went to the University of Tennessee and finished my BS. And then stayed around. I had an assistantship with the Tennessee Wildlife Resources Agency working on the European wild boar. And so I finished there with my master's degree. Actually, before I finished, I went to work for Tennessee Wildlife Resources Agency as a wildlife officer and worked in enforcement there for something over a year. And applied to come back to North Carolina, and with a second interview I was successful and was able to come back. And I started to work out in the mountains in District 9 as a district biologist.
Well, Tom, what made you decide to go into the wildlife field? What made you choose that major?
Well, there's several factors. One, you know, I really enjoyed the outdoors. The other was, when I was in high school, I had a 10th grade biology teacher that really got me interested. He was just one of the gifted teachers that, you know, was able to instill values and that sort of thing. So the things that we did in there, I enjoyed so much that it really got to be a way of thinking for me. When I had the opportunity, then I tried to make good of it.
You met him years later, right?
Yeah, and as a matter of fact, he was teaching at Mars Hill College years later and taught, worked with David Sawyer's parents out there. Don McLeod was the man's name. I actually took some of his classes on field trips when I was out in District 9. So it was a really good reunion.
And so then you started directly with the Tennessee Wildlife?
Yeah, it was actually before I finished my thesis. In those days we worked 55-hour weeks, and I was trying to do a thesis and work 55 hours. We worked 5.5 10-hour days. So it was, you know, a little tough going there for a while. But finish it I did. That's when I came to North Carolina, soon after I finished my thesis.
Well, how long did you work for Tennessee Agency?
Just a little over a year. It was rewarding, and it gave me the opportunity to see, you know, the other side of wildlife. A lot of times you see the biologists and enforcement people, you know, at odds with each other. In the case over there, I think they have a really good system. They require their officers to have wildlife degrees, so they're not just, you know, pure law enforcement officers. In the county that I worked in, I was the the first contact, you know, for anything biological, whether it be fish, wildlife, anything educational. I actually wrote a weekly newspaper article. I did boating and hunter safety classes, plus all the law enforcement work. If there was a fish kill, I was the first on the scene. Man, I think it worked really great. The emphasis was on prevention of wildlife violations rather than punishment.
Mm-hmm.
You spent a lot of time in the boat.
I spent a lot of time in the boat. I worked on the Norris Lake in Union County, Tennessee.
Well, that give you a pretty broad outlook toward wildlife management.
Sure did, sure did. And, you know, I value that experience.
I've heard you talk of some pretty colorful experiences when you worked as an enforcement officer. Can you think of one of those that you might want to share?
Probably the funniest one was spring during the crappie season. It's crappie in Tennessee, by the way. It's crappie here, but it's crappie in Tennessee. I was working one night. I had gone out in the boat and worked bass fishermen and that sort of thing from like 4 o'clock in the afternoon on toward evening. And I went back to the boat dock to get some dinner. And when I was going in, it was kind of getting dark, and these two guys were coming out in the little John boat. I pulled up, you know, and I said, you know, I'd like to check your boat registration and that sort of thing, so I did. And I said, you know, it's getting dark out here and you guys don't have any lights on the boat. You need to go back to the dock there and get some lights and put on it. I said, okay. So I went on and ate dinner, went back out and worked till 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, started back in. And just off the point out from the dock was another light. You know, you go to the lights because it's dark and you're sitting out there fishing. So I went to the light and I pulled up to the boat and it's these same two guys. They're sitting there, a rod out on each side of the boat, on each end, 2 guys. And I said, need to check your fishing license. Oh, you checked those before. I said, no, I checked your boat registration, you weren't fishing then. So now I need to check your fishing license. So the one in front, he pulls it out and hands it to me. And I'm looking at the guy in the back of the boat, he's just not saying anything. So I turn around to him and I say, now I'd like to see your license. He says, I wasn't fishing. So I asked the guy in front of the boat, I said, is that right, he wasn't fishing? He said, no, he wasn't fishing. And I got my citation book out, started writing. He says, what are you doing? So I'm writing you a ticket. He said, what for? I said, how many rods can you be using in the state of Tennessee? He said, 3. I said, count them. There's 4. And you said you wasn't fishing, so they got to be all yours. And I'm writing, he said, I can tell he was thinking about it. He says, wait a damn minute. I said, what? He said, that son of a bitch was fishing. And, you know, there's several things like that. We had a coon hunter one night that had 2 raccoons when he was only allowed 1. There was 2 guys, but on the management area that we were working, you could only have 1 coon per party. And they were both in the same car, so they were at a party. Driving a Volkswagen. And laying up in the back behind the window was a dead raccoon. And I shined the light in, I stopped him. We had a roadblock set up. I said, well, looks like you got yours. He said, yeah, we got ours, we're headed on in. I said, well, how about opening up this front end? Let's take a look in there. He said, it won't open. I said, is that right, it won't open? No, he said, it's tore up, it won't open. I said, I believe I could open it. And I reached in my truck and got a lug wrench. He said, wait a minute. And so let me mess with it a little bit. So he got in there and we pulled the handle, it popped up, and there laid another raccoon. The other guy's still sitting in the car, and he said, hey, Joe, come here. Somebody's crawled up in here and died. So it was interesting. And a lot of interesting things happened. Anytime I guess you interact with the some things.
Well, then you started in what year with the Wildlife Commission?
Started in 1975 here in North Carolina Wildlife Resources. Kept here in 1975.
And what was your first job?
District 9 biologist. Lived over at Selma. Well, actually Dillsboro, I guess. It's a suburb of Selma. But, and then soon after, when I first started, I worked for John Collins, and worked for Tom Henson and those guys out there. Soon after I started, there was a reorganization that put all the district biologists under the area game land supervisor. And so I became the biologist over the eastern half of District 9. And was in charge of the Waynesville Wildlife Management Crew. And that area there of Polk County, Henderson, Buncombe, Transylvania, Haywood, and Madisonville. And did the things that, district biologists do, plus we did the game lands work back then, posting, mowing, all that sort of thing.
Delivering seeds.
Yeah, we delivered a lot of seed in those days to private individuals. Sure you remember that, those days.
Yeah.
Had an old 75 Plymouth station wagon, Plymouth Fury station wagon, it was about a block and a half long. And had Firestone 500 tires on it. Loaded it down one day with seed, delivered it a lot of different places all over the district. Before the day was out, I had blown all 4 tires on that old Plymouth station wagon. Firestone 500s didn't have that.
Yeah,
Leftover seeds would sprout in the back.
Yeah, I had seed growing out of the spare tire well and all sorts of things. But it was kind of a different time back then. There weren't, things are more than structured as they are now. And I guess you didn't have a lot of outside interest. If you know what I mean.
that was your whole life was probably being a district biologist.
Yeah, it sure was. And the district biologist position, as far as that goes, about any position in the wildlife commission, I guess it becomes your whole life.
Yeah, you spent a lot of time doing the deer.
Yeah, that was one of the big projects we had was trapping the deer and moving them off Biltmore State and stocking, in some of the game land areas that didn't have them. And it was a lot of fun. We had a lot of fun in those days too.
A lot of stories on Biltmore.
Yeah, I remember one week we worked up there, it was in 1977, I guess. You probably remember that we had a really cold winter in 77. I mean, it was cold. And we were out in blinds trapping deer that whole week when the high in Asheville was 11. And we had fence posts that we had to drive in the ground to use the rocket nets. And the ground was so hard and so frozen that you couldn't drive them in. If you got in an inch or two, it'd stand up enough to shoot the rockets off of it. But it was really cold. Several things happened there too. I don't know, some of them, you can't, I don't know whether to tell them or not, but.
Yeah, like apples.
Yeah.
Maybe we shouldn't tell them that.
No.
Well, we would
We had this
start.
fellow named Park Peterson that worked for the Wildlife Resource Commission out there. He'd been working, I don't know how long, he was one of the old area managers back before they did away with the management areas on national forest lands. And Park was a go-getter. I mean, he worked like a dog. If you gave him something to do, he'd get it done, You might have to be careful about how he did it, but he'd get it done. But we used rocket nets, and we shot those rockets with a car battery. And usually we'd set up in a tent, sometimes even in a vehicle, to shoot. And we'd run a wire to the rockets. And Park felt like that you had to charge that battery every day. You could have probably used it the whole season, you know. I mean, it's just instantaneous when you shoot the rocket. It doesn't really take any juice out of the battery. But Park felt like it ought to be charged every day if he didn't want to miss any chances. And what he would do would take his battery out of his truck and put the battery that shot the rockets in the truck and let the truck alternator charge it up. So we were sitting there one day at one of the houses there on Biltmore State planning, you know, we just got together to plan, and Park had put the battery in his truck, and he decided it needed to be revved up a little so it charged faster. So he took his binoculars case and he wedged it on the gas pedal under the brake, so the truck would run a little faster and charge the battery. And he got back out and he talked a little bit. Park liked Sunday school words.
Oh, yeah.
He said, you know, I got to go down and check them damn bait sites. So he jumped in the truck, jammed in reverse, and started backing down the driveway. And this was right on the Biltmore State there. Across the road was a cow pasture. And Park back down to the road and started, when he tried to stop, you know, he pushed the brake. And the truck shot across the road, through the fence, down through the pasture, and climbed an apple tree, the back of the truck. And went up on an apple tree, and the back wheels were off the pin, went zzz. Then he come out, and I probably shouldn't say it on the tape, but he strung together so many expletives, you know, that you couldn't keep up with it. He said, damn, the more I'm asked to break, the faster the son of a bitch will. So we all had a really good laugh out of it. We were sore for several days after that.
End of the workday.
And this Park went to his grave without living that down. There are a lot of things happened over there, but it was a good experience. It's one of the highlights of my career, I guess.
Yeah. Judy and Tom worked a lot of long hours during those
Yes.
times.
Oh, yes. When I was doing law enforcement, the phone calls were endless. And oh yeah, he was gone a lot doing that deer project on Biltmore. Yeah.
Yeah, usually from 7 in the morning until midnight a lot of times.
Yeah.
If we caught deer, then we had to go release them.
No such thing as overtime or comp time.
You know.
In fact, the birth of our youngest daughter, he had to be reeled in from. We had to get the dispatcher to call him. He'd already gone. He was already to Waynesville and headed to Asheville. Had to call the dispatcher. Everybody was all nervous except me. It was like, you know, well, where is he? Where is he? I don't know. You just have to. He's gone to Waynesville. You just have to. You're the dispatcher. You'll have to go find him. So you know.
Of course, they did find me on the radio, so
Yeah,
I got there in time.
I had to go pick up our other daughter from school first, though. So he got to the hospital. He's all right.
That's good.
But yeah, you know, it's a commitment. And in those days especially, it was different then. We worked whatever needed to be done, you know, we were there working. We didn't go to work at 8 o'clock in the morning and work and get off at 4:30. Which seems to be the trend nowadays with everybody. Well, there's still a lot of people with the Wildlife Commission too that do that sort of thing. There's still a lot of dedicated people, especially the non-gang group. I know that that's one I'm most familiar with. But, and I know that there's a lot of people that spend a lot of long hours without a great deal of compensation.
But you probably had a lot of fun too, working with other people like
yeah.
that. What sort of things would you do?
Well, of course, in the mountains, the deer project was one of the big ones, and then after it came down here, the waterfowl banding, and Jack Donnelly and I came down to the coast in 1978 as a forester, actually, in charge of managing game land in the coastal region. But in addition to that, I had a 3-county area that I acted as kind of a district biologist into, still doing the same kinds of extension kind of work, that they do now, actually. But we did a lot of waterfowl banding. Jack Donnie and I had a great system going down on South Creek banding canvasbacks and scaup.
Now Jack was a waterfowl biologist.
Jack was a waterfowl biologist at the time, and he was also the supervisor of the eastern 3 districts. We kept on until we were catching more ducks than we could handle. We started out with the basic little 8x8 trap, you know, the diving duck trap where you bait inside and there's doors underwater where they can go down and dive and come up inside. And then, you know, it makes it difficult to get back out. So we'd get, 10 or 15 in there, and when you walked up to it, they'd start diving so much that, you know, half of them would get away before you could get them out. So we developed kind of a combination of a diving duck and a puddle duck trap, and funneled them out of that first part into a corral and back. And we were up to catching we caught them in 250 a whack, which is kind of hard to handle. I remember one case we had a 16-foot John boat, and Jack and I had caught, upwards of 200 ducks. We had wooden boxes sitting in this John boat, and we had so many ducks in there that when we went back to the land, to band them, when I shut the engine down or slowed the boat down, the front end went underwater. And Jack was hollering, "We're sinking, we're sinking, we're sinking." He was up on top of the boxes trying to stay out of the water. Fortunately, the water was only about that deep. But we had a lot of ducks in boxes that we had to wrestle over to the bank, and then get them out and dry them out and try to keep them going in shock. Then Tom Henson and I were using that same trap. I don't know if anybody here remembers the blizzard of 1986, whatever it was.
No, not late.
82, I think it was. It had a blizzard here that had about 28 inches of snow, if you remember that. And Tom Henson and I were down there in South Creek with 200-something ducks in the trap, trying to get them banded during that, when that blizzard started.
All day, just blinding.
And we decided finally, we had ducks that went in the shock, it was so cold and wet, the trap built up ice, collapsed on everything, so we were all wet. We were getting those ducks out, trying to save them, getting them in the house, and drying them out and warming them up, and getting them out again. And by the time we got through, it was getting on at 5 o'clock in the afternoon, and you couldn't even see the road. It was just smooth white, and it was snowing so hard and thundering and lightning at the same time that you couldn't really see anything. Tom's wife was with us, and we decided when we started back home that we better stick together, instead of him going toward Newbern and me coming home. So he came home with me since I lived closest. And we had to actually drive with the window rolled down, just watching the depression where the ditch along the highway would be. And we got within a mile of my house out here where the cemetery is, where you cross the creek there. I was driving a big 3/4-ton Dodge pickup, and the snow got so deep there that it was coming up over the hood and up onto the windshield. And we lost the road and got both vehicles in the ditch out there and had to walk on here. So it gets, kind of trying at times, but we didn't have any ducks die though. We saved them all. Canvasbacks, pretty scarce at the time, still are, I guess.
What other kind of trapping techniques were you ever involved with rocket nets?
Yeah, of course with the deer project, did some turkey trapping with rocket nets. Did goose trapping with rocket nets. Actually moved into the non-game program before they just started the swan probably very much. I never got in on turkeys very much. We did a little bit of rocket net trapping with turkeys up in the mountains, but when turkeys got going big, I kind of switched positions.
Well, for a while, you said you were in the coastal forestry position is our, what kind of forestry work was the commission involved with at the time?
Primarily management on commission-owned lands. At the time, we had about 120,000 acres in the coastal plain. Now there's a lot more than that. That job is really huge now. But all the lands have been bought in the last few years, and, especially since the two new programs, the Heritage program and the Clean Water Management Trust Fund program. The wildlife basically bought all the lands, and I don't know exactly how many acres in the coastal region they have, but I'm sure it's probably multiple times what I had to deal with back then. But it involved primarily burning, controlled burnings to improve habitats, marking and selling timber, reforestation, and that sort of thing, commission on lands. And we did a lot of red cockaded woodpecker work too at the time, especially on hollow shelter and working with Croatan National Forest a lot too.
Was that some of the first non-game work that the commission did? I know we started off pretty much as a hunting and fishing agency, but
that probably was the first. I remember probably the first Section 6 money that became available, that Section 6 Endangered Species Act, that provided some funds, for states to work with the endangered species. That kind of got us in a little bit of trouble, I guess, because we bought a fire plow with some of that money, but it was intended to manage for red cockaded woodpecker, so we thought it was legitimate. The Fed didn't seem to think so, but we did. And so that was probably the very first of the endangered species management.
well, you were sort of a pioneer in that field early on then.
Yeah, well, I consider myself fortunate to have been where I was at the time. I worked as a forester for 8 years, and then the opportunity came with a non-game program. It was pretty new at the time. I don't know, 1983 we had the passage of legislation that enabled the non-game endangered wildlife fund, which gave people the opportunity to donate tax refund, or portion of the tax refunds to go toward non-game endangered wildlife management in North Carolina. And it started out with just a couple of people in it, and I guess for 2 years it was that way. We had 2 people. One was a biologist statewide, and the other was an educational representative. And the need came along, and that we had to have some more people, so it kind of expanded. And there were positions established for a project leader for each of the 3 areas of North Carolina, one for the mountains, the Piedmont, the coast. And since I've been involved in the red cockaded woodpecker work and that sort of thing, I was kind of ready for a change. I like a challenge once in a while, I don't like to stay in the same rut too long. I decided I would apply for that coastal position, and was lucky enough to get it. Feel fortunate that I did get it. So, I guess 3 of us really put the new program on the ground.
Now, who was that?
It was, I was in the coastal region. John Alderman was the Piedmont project leader, and Alan Boynton hired on it at the same time I did and became the mountain non-game project leader. And
Who
it
else was working in that program at the time?
Jack Donnelly again. I met up with Jack again because he'd become the supervisor over that program at the time. And I guess having known Jack before was one of the reasons that I got the job. I was green. Of course, everybody in those days was green, when it came to non-game, because there just wasn't a lot of expertise around in non-game. And what there was, usually in universities or that sort of thing, they weren't practical biologists that were putting anything on the ground.
And all of you, except perhaps John Alderman, were traditionally game oriented,
That's right.
weren't you?
Yeah, Alan and I both came through the, you know, the game management end of it. And learned it in school too. I didn't get a lot of background in non-game, even in college, even with a master's degree. Because in those days, you knew it